Today's sessions on the Azure fundamentals, we will try to evaluate and see the Azure App Service. So before to get started on the Azure App Service, there are few more concepts I want to get it clarified so that we can, when we go to the Azure App Service, we have an understanding on the Azure App Service that what we are trying to do in the Azure App Service. So today's session, it will concentrate some of the services like Resource Manager and services like uh, Azure App Service. And once we start on the Azure App Service, there will be few more services will be keep on adding onto it so that we will take one certain architecture and we will try to expand on top of it. Right. So myself, Sharon, please subscribe to my channel and press on the bell icon. So what I have done is this is the list of topics what we try to cover. But however, I don't feel like you can do it in only one session, so it span to more than one sessions. So first point is Azure icons. So what we are trying to see in the Azure icons, whenever we build a Azure architecture, right? So Azure architecture has its own icons. So we should have a very basic understanding of the Azure icons, and we should be able to identify which icon is used for which of the Azure service. Azure Resource Group, where all the resources are grouped together. So that is something called as Azure Resource Group. So in coming slides, I will walk you to the more informations on the Azure Resource Groups. So next is Azure App Service. So we will see the scenario when we can use the Azure App Service, what are the advantages, what are the disadvantages, what is the necessity of using the Azure App Services, what are the various options are available. Then the third point is Azure Resources, right? So the in Azure Resources, how we create the Azure resource? What are the various options are available, right? The Azure resources can be created via the Azure portal. You can create via the CLI command line interface. Uh, the command line interface available even on the Azure portal where you can write your command and create the Azure resources. And the third option is Azure PowerShell. So using the PowerShell, you can connect to the Azure resources where you can go ahead and create the resources, Azure resources which you are looking for. And in the ARM templates, it's a template formation which you can execute either through either through the code, or you can run this template in the PowerShell and it will create all the resources which is required for your project. And securing the web apps. So once we start building our entire web-based applications, how we can secure our apps is something which is going to be covered in the Azure Web Apps. So moving to the next slide. So here I put up a list of icons. There are many icons. This is only for sample purpose what I put on the screen. So you can see that there are various icons we use for each of the Azure services. Like for storage, we use this icon. For virtual network, we use this icon, right? And for Visual Studio Online, we use this icon. So whenever we build a Azure architecture diagram, right? So we are going to use the various icons based on the requirement to depict which of the Azure resources we are going to use it. In my previous slides, where I have tried to show you how the costing is done, how should you browse the portal, this slide represents how you should use the icons. So I have listed few of the icons, but don't forget to get the latest icon from the portal. So icons will keep on changing. So based upon the change in the features, based upon the new offerings, there will be addition, there will be deletion, and there will be a modifications in the icons. So example, before quite some time or initial time, there is something called worker role and the web roles were there, right? So those services are no more available in Azure. So those icons are taken out. So the new icons here came in where we have an app configuration as a new service which is being launched. So for that service, there is a new icon has been introduced. And few of the icons like your app service icon, they are modified, they are changed from the previous icon to the new icon. So whenever you use these icons, so make sure that you download your icons and you use that. So these icons can be used on PowerPoint, where you can put these icons, or else you can use your UML diagrams, where also you can go ahead and use these icons and draw the diagram. Right, even you can just Google around Azure icons, you get all these icons which are pretty much available for the download and for the use. So coming to the very interesting topic, that is Azure Resource Group. So what is Azure Resource Group? So whenever we create any resources on Azure, it mandatorily has to be tagged to a Azure Resource Group. So this Azure Resource Group is a cost free. It doesn't cost you anything much, but it adds lot of value addition to your project. Example, as you can see in this circle, this is one of the Azure Resource Group I have created. Within that, I put up all my services here. So when you see these services, they can be IaaS services or they can be a PaaS services. So you can accommodate any resources within the Azure resource group. There is no limitation, or I think there is a maximum 250 resources what you can put it under single Azure resource group. And these resource group can be created for any location. So you can have a Azure resource group being created in India location, but your actual resources or actual Azure services can be in US, or it can be in UK, or it can be in Japan. So it doesn't matters, right? So Azure group is kind of a bucket. In that bucket you are going to put all your Azure resources, and you tag all the resources to the Azure resource group. So what are the addition, or what are the benefit it brings on the table when we are going to use the Azure resource group? So when we are going to use the Azure resource group, there is a, first of all, it provides a granular level control on your resources, which is called as a RBAC. So what we do in the RBAC, so example, assume that you have got a team of four, and you want only one person should do the addition and deletion of the resources in a particular given resource group. Then you can put a RBAC restriction on it, which will be tagged to your AD. So based upon the permission which is being given to the person, you can either edit, or you can create, or you can delete it, or you can vary the responsibility to the different people by assigning the RBAC role to them. So the second one is resource costing. Assume that you have a several projects are running within the Azure, and you wanted to know each project how much it is going to cost you. So all the resources which are tagged on the Azure resource group can be separately be monitored, and separately be estimated the cost associated with them. So the another important thing is we can monitor independently. Though I did not mention on this slide, all the resources belong to the certain resource group can be monitored independently, and they can be created the alerts and notification services separately for those resource groups. And the fourth or fifth point is the resource grouping. So you can create all the resources, and you can group together, and you can tag to a person. Example, there is a four or five products are running, and you wanted to tag each resource group to a product owner. So those kind of features can also be availed on the Azure resource group. So when you create this Azure resource group, there is a zero cost associated with the Azure resource group. So you need not to pay any penny for creating and using the Azure resource group. So for today's session, so I wanted to limit myself to the Azure resource group, because in coming session we need a more time to understand the concept. But the one thing we wanted to make it clear, that whenever you want to provision any of the resources, you are going to do it via Azure resource group. So when we start creating some of the Azure resource through the portal, you will see that the first option it will comes up, either you to select or create the new resource group. Okay, guys, for today's, I think I covered what is Azure Resource Group, what is the advantage and disadvantage, and why we need to use the Azure Resource Group. So in next session, we will try to come up with the next new slides. Thank you. Bye.